So maybe you've just figured out that you're trans and you want to start your transition. So what comes first in that journey? Obviously, it's very different for many people, but I wanted to share kind of my path of coming out as trans and just being myself in the world. I do lots of research when it comes to anything in my life. So why would I not do the same when it comes to my transition? Because this is a big change. Arguably the biggest change that I've ever gone through in my entire life. I wanted to make sure I was doing it right. I feel like this is a common thing that a lot of us go through, where we want to make sure everything's perfect, especially before we come out full time. It's like everything needs to be figured out. But I didn't know who I was and what I was doing. I was just starting to peel back the layers, going to these trans woman forums and things like that to just try to see, like, what do other people do? What do people do when you, like, figure out this and you drop a bomb on people of, like, hey, I'm trans? It's like, well, what does that mean? What are you gonna do? What are those changes? This is different than being a cross-dresser, right? Yeah, much different. After weeks of research, I was just like, looks like the first thing that I need to do is go to therapy. And I feel like this is a common first or early step for a lot of us, at least those of us that are fortunate enough to be able to access that. I was still a student at the time. I mean, I'm still a student now. I was still a graduate student in my first time of being a graduate student. Had about a semester and a half left and was like, maybe I should finally use the counseling center here before I have to go to a neighborhood provider that costs way more. And I had no idea what to expect. I am now pursuing that path of becoming a therapist myself, but at this time, that wasn't my plan. That wasn't necessarily in my cards. I didn't know what my future looked like, which was a big reason why I was going to therapy, because I didn't like what I thought my future was going to be like. A big thing that caused me to come out and start transitioning was just like, let me look forward to my future. What do I imagine it will look like? Kind of that little exercise that we've probably all done at least once, where it's like, where do you imagine yourself in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? I kept imagining 5, 10, 15 years off in the future, and it just got bleaker and darker as it went. I just got more and more unhappy and more isolated from just life in the world, escaping into my partner, escaping into video games and movies, and just not really feeling connected, not having those strong social support systems that I really craved but didn't know how to access because I just didn't really know who I was. I wasn't necessarily going to therapy to like unpack everything. I was just going because it's like, okay, if I want to medically transition, I need a letter. That was kind of the motivator for me to go to therapy in the first place. Like, I didn't know when or if I really wanted to take hormones, but I was like, I want that opportunity. I know that this is a process I need to start before I can even consider doing that. I just was not expecting to kind of unravel all the layers and really dig deep, but thought it was just like, let me talk about myself. Oh, you're trans, here's a letter, moving on. And to some extent, that piece is there, but I feel like if you get a good therapist who really helps you figure out these aspects of who you are. I went on this journey of figuring out like who I am and what I want. What does it mean to me to be trans? How do I know this? Like, how am I coming into my own? Where is this coming from? Let's navigate like kind of these early milestones I'm going through, starting to come out to the first people in my life. Now, I found out really quickly, and I'm very thankful I had a very positive first experience in therapy, because I think that is so critical. And just jump on a little soapbox here for a minute. I think having a bad first therapy experience is why so many people, in my opinion, very wrongly think that therapy does not work for them. I think therapy works for everyone. It's just about getting that right match with a therapist. Therapists are people too, and people are not perfect. People can't always help you in the ways that you want. And different therapists approach therapy in different ways because people just approach life differently. People approach solving problems differently. It's more of a matter that it was a bad fit. Just think of it like going to the doctor's office. If you don't like your doctor, your experience is going to be a lot worse, and you're probably not going to get the care you need just because you feel more uncomfortable in that situation. Even if they're really good at the medical side, if they're bad at the people side, that still negatively impacts your health. And I'm super thankful. She was so supportive, so validating, that very basic human empathy. On top of that, getting me really connected to providers in the community, to other support groups. You know, around this time I started going to a trans support group on campus. I started going to a LGBT group therapy. You know, it's just all these things where I'm really starting to explore myself, and I'm being supported by multiple people in multiple different situations on this journey. And it's just like, wow, in a million years, I never would have expected this. Plenty of strangers are being shitty because I don't always think I'm passable now, and I was definitely not passable then. So many people that just didn't have to be supportive that were. Obviously, I'm going to a therapist for a service, but that doesn't mean the therapist has to be good. That doesn't mean the therapist has to know jack shit about trans people and how to serve trans people in affirming, validating, and appropriate ways. No. She went out of the way to really help me. I honestly, knowing what I know now, and I'm obviously biased because of this career path and academic path that I'm on, knowing what I know now, even if I didn't want a letter for hormones, even if I didn't plan on like medically transitioning and just planned on like socially transitioning, I would still absolutely wanted to go to therapy. It just helped me in so many ways that the medicine alone can't do, the hormones alone can't do. Things start to come into sync with my mind and body, with the mental and physical changes from the hormones. But I really also had to like just unpack all the identity stuff wrapped in there, all the past experiences, all the insecurities, missed opportunities, and me kind of putting my life on hold because I couldn't be me out in the world. The hormones aren't really going to help those problems be solved. If I have all these deep-seated insecurities, those are still going to be there if I don't get that mental health help. Even if I take hormones and get surgeries and do all that type of stuff, which is why, this is turning into more of a soapbox of like, you should get therapy moment. But I guess kind of what I'm saying is like, therapy is one of those first stages. You know, you can go about your transition in any way you want, obviously, but I would recommend, especially if you're planning on medically transitioning, but even if you're not, I would recommend like really going to somebody that has knowledge on the issues of just trans identity and transition, if you can find somebody, and really just start that journey towards figuring out who you are. I think that is so important in this process because coming out and transitioning is a huge thing. It is a literal life transition, and it's a huge thing, and it's not something that we should have to do alone, and it's something that we should have somebody helping us along the way with, at least in those early stages where we don't know what the fuck we're doing. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing early in therapy, early in my transition, and early in therapy. Felt like I was just making this shit up along the way, even though I was like looking online and finding all these resources. It still felt like I was very much on my own, but we don't have to be. We all have struggles, whether we're trans or not. Sometimes we need that other person to help facilitate that growth through these problems, you know, push us to perspectives that we might not be able to see otherwise. You know, that was the start of my medical transition journey. Therapy really came first for me. And I think it's a great place to start in those early days of your transition, just to start really putting those pieces together, unpeeling those layers. For a lot of us, we've really bottled up who we are for many years before we come out. Let that person inside come out. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. What were some of your first transition steps? Where did therapy factor into your journey? As always, thank you so much for watching. Tipsy and I love you very much. Hope you're staying safe and healthy. Please give this a thumbs up, a subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you have not done so already. Thank you so much for watching.